we are in effect doing with the devolved benefits and those powers is building for the first time in decades a brand new public service for Scotland. To us. Now those 11 benefits, I'd rather have them all, but nonetheless they affect 1 in 4 of us, 1.4 million people. So a lot of people. They equate to about 15% of the UK government's spend on welfare. So what we have to do is we have to unpick the 11 benefits from the UK whole, take them over, if you like, here, and design and create and build the infrastructure to deliver them, but make sure that they can plug back in to the 85% that stays with the UK. Because there will be many people who will receive financial support that comes from a benefit either that the Scottish Government delivers, but also one that the UK Government is delivering. So our system and theirs has to work together. That makes it complex in a way that it wouldn't be if it was the whole thing. The scale of it, I've said, is 1 in 4 of us, 1.4 million people. The total size of the job, if you like, in monetary terms is the equivalent of building a new 4th crossing every single year. It's about 2.8 billion. And at the end of the exercise, by the end of this Parliament, the Scottish Government will deliver more payments in a week than we currently do in a year. So we have to build the infrastructure that makes sure that that can be done. And we have to make sure, above all else, that the benefits are transferred safely and securely. Because the one thing that can't happen is one of those 1.4 million people doesn't get the money that they're entitled to on the day that they expect it, at the level that they're relying on, because somehow, between those two governments, they've fallen down the cracks. So we need to get the data from the DWP about who currently qualifies for those benefits in order that we can make the payments ourselves accurately. Unfortunately, that's not as straightforward as it sounds, because the DWP system is a product since the Second World War of successive UK governments taking a bit out of it and lobbing a bit onto it. So instead of a nice clean structure, it's a bit knobbly around the sides, and it is internally incoherent. So cold weather payments, for example, for us to get the information about simply the names, addresses, national insurance number, bank account details of the people in Scotland who would currently qualify for winter fuel payments, relies on 11 different DWP IT systems all working together at the same time. Industrial injuries and severe disability, about 22,000 people in Scotland who currently receive that benefit, is entirely paper-based. So somewhere there is a very large shed with 22,000 brown folders with Scottish postcodes on them, in amongst probably another 60-odd thousand brown folders that have English or Welsh postcodes on them. So we have to make sure that the team of folk that go in and pull out the Scottish postcodes are followed by another team of folk, making sure none are left behind. Otherwise, somebody is not going to get the money that they're entitled to. So the size and the complexity is quite significant, but the opportunity is golden, absolutely golden. So there's a number of important things that as a government we've already said that I think it's worth repeating. First is that this is social security. It's not welfare. It's social security. It is an investment that we all make in ourselves and in each other. And there isn't one of us sitting in this room tonight who doesn't know the day that might come when we will look to that system for the financial support that we're entitled to and that we need. A loss of a job, ill health, an accident that produces a disability, the death of a loved one. All of us are not that far away sometimes from needing that financial support. That's why we have a social security system. It comes out of that post-Second World War contract that built a welfare state and built a national health service, where we decided collectively we would all contribute in order to make sure that even if one of us never needed to use it, it was there in case. And we would do that for each other. So ours is a social security system. Secondly, that it is a rights-based system. And it will be founded on the principles of dignity, fairness and respect. I spent last summer, we spent 3 months in total as a Scottish Government, listening to groups of people like yourselves in halls and rooms, the length and breadth of Scotland, the islands, every single part. Talk to us about how the current benefit system worked for them, how they felt when they were trying to secure the benefits that they were entitled to. What were the good bits and what were the bits that weren't so good? And in all of that time and in all of the consultation, the written responses that we got, over 500 of them, what was constant throughout is how the current system makes people feel diminished and demeaned. How in the health assessments for the disability benefits, people are so anxious by the exercise and the process and the fear of losing out on the benefit that they're entitled to, that they become more ill as a consequence. I heard that from GPs as well as from individuals themselves. GP practices where GPs are saying to me, I'm spending more time dealing with the consequences of that patient having to go for a PIP assessment than I am with a condition that is their real health condition in the first place. I heard about carers allowance, where people are restricted by the criteria of that allowance. That means that whilst they are caring for a loved one, a child or an adult, there is little room in the allowance itself for them to be able to take up part-time work or study part-time or do anything really to help maintain their own life in parallel to their caring responsibilities. I heard about how when the person that they are caring for dies, or in the case of a young person perhaps moves on to independent living, which is what that parent desperately wanted to see achieved, their benefit, their carer's allowance ends like that. No tapering. Could be 20 years that that's what you've done, 30 years that's what you've done. All of your financial support is attached to the person that you care for. And when you're no longer caring for that person, you're cut off in a oneer. And I also heard about, I mean loads and loads, but one more thing, about how if you go for that PIP assessment and the decision is made that you will receive less benefit as you walk out the door than you did when you were walking in the door, that reduced amount comes into force straight away, before any appeal process has been completed. Now that is just straightforwardly not fair. That's just straightforwardly completely against general principles of natural justice. So our social security system will be a social security system. It will be founded on those principles of dignity, fairness and respect. We will examine the eligibility criteria and the internal criteria, if you like, on carers allowance, and we will increase carers allowance to the level of job seekers allowance, which is about £600 a year more for carers, and I wouldn't pretend that it meets what they deserve, but it is a step in recognition, a step in the direction. We will redesign our whole approach to disability benefits. It strikes me that if somebody, for example, has cerebral palsy, then they have a condition that frankly isn't going to get any better. So why do we have to keep assessing and reassessing and reassessing? I don't see the point of making the individual go through that, and I don't see the point of spending public money doing it either. I don't see that private contractors with a value system that makes sense if you're commercially operating, which is to make profit, equates with a social security system based on dignity, fairness and respect. Doesn't marry up for me. So we've got a number of steps to go through. And I'll just finish with those and then let's have the questions. We've done the consultation exercise, the person-to-person one over 3 months. We've had over 500 written responses. Those have been independently analysed. The analysis is on the government's website if you want to have a look. Our response to that is there too. What happens next is that this week I will announce in the Parliament what the shape of the Social Security Agency for Scotland will look like. What will it be? Will it be all central or all local or something mixed? And I can't tell you because I need to tell Parliament first. If I told you, I'd get into great big bother. Not only, I mean, from the presiding officer, it's bad enough, but the First Minister wouldn't be too chuffed either, and trust me, that's much worse. So, but that will be Thursday. We will introduce our bill to the Scottish Parliament, our legislation to the Scottish Parliament, before the summer recess, so before the end of June. Now we need to do that because we need a legal basis on which to make money, make payments and run a system. And we will, before the summer, announce what will be the first wave of benefits that we will take over completely. And we're doing it incrementally like that. So some of you might have seen a bit of a contrived stushy about how we were delaying taking the powers. We're not. There's two ways that you do this. You get the legislative competence, which we will have in time to introduce our bill. Then you get what they call, this is from Westminster, executive competence. It basically means you can deliver it. I have no intention of holding off and delivering all of those benefits to those 1.4 million people in one big bang. Can you imagine not having tested and retested your system, your IT system, your payment system, the way in which people can apply, the way in which their decisions are made, where we get the evidence from to support decisions, but to do it all for 1.4 million people in a wunner? What utter recklessness. So we take the benefits one by one, and we build the system, we test it, we deliver, we learn, and we do the next one. The final thing I want to say is the really, really critical bit. That consultation that we ran in the summer was, I hope, a signal about the approach that we are taking. And that approach is that we are building this from the ground up, and we're using and wanting to use the direct personal experience of probably three main groups of people. People who are currently receiving benefits, particularly any one of those 11 that we will be responsible for. People who are currently actively involved in providing welfare advice and support through citizens' advice, through local authorities or otherwise, because they're the ones that understand the whole system and can make sure that what we do in Scotland does plug in to the UK one and nobody falls down the middle. And the third group are people who have experience of working in something like the DWP. Because if I want social security to be delivered on the basis of dignity, fairness and respect, the people who are doing the delivery need to be treated with dignity, fairness and respect. And it is my absolute conviction from years of experience that the best people to help me decide what are the jobs in that agency, how should it work, should there be targets, should there not be targets, what discretion is there for individuals, are people with experience of doing the job, either in the DWP or in local government payment systems or even in Scottish Government's own smaller scale payment systems. So we'll be listening to them too and to their union, the PCS. And that's why one of the things that you've got on your seat is about the experience panels. Because we're looking for 2,000 volunteers, 2,000 individuals who currently are in receipt of one or more of those 11 benefits to join our experience panels and work with us for the next 4 years to help us design the system. Help us decide what we should do about carers allowance. Not the level, but the criteria. Help us decide what we should do about health assessments for disability benefits. What should we do to make sure that more people, more women who are pregnant, get our new Best Start grant, which will more than double the provision of the current Sure Start grant, that they know about it and they get it? How can we make sure that more people actually know what they're entitled to, whether they're in work or not? And a whole range of other questions, from designing the materials, and the experience panel designed this, right through to what's the best way for people to get in touch with the Scottish Social Security Agency. Not digital by default, but what other ways should we make that happen? So those experience panels are really important, and the only thing you have to do is go online and fill in the form, fill in the paper form here, and we'll make sure that it gets into the Scottish Government, or phone the free phone number. There's no interview. The fact that you've phoned or you've gone online, trust me, we're about to nail your feet to the floor. You're going to work with us for 4 years. It'll be, you'll opt in and you'll opt out. Things happen in people's lives over 4 years where you'll be able to give more time at some point and less time at another. That's all fine. And we will work out the best way for you to be involved, whether it's person to person, phone surveys, online work, small focus groups, whatever. But those experience panels, those 2,000 volunteers that we absolutely need, are the really important people, because they're going to be the ones that make sure that somebody like me doesn't go into a darkened room, have a bunch of what I think are clever ideas. I might do that, but the experience panels will be the one that will go, aye, very good, Jeane, but that'll no work. They're the critical people. So our whole approach to this is building it from the ground up. It's a new public service for people in Scotland. It needs to be built by people in Scotland. And I hope that either you tonight will think about joining the experience panel, or there's somebody you know that you'll encourage to do that. Thanks very much.